Welcome to Heart with Anna. I am Anna Jaworski, your host. I'm also a heart mom to an adult who was born with a single ventricle heart and who is 29 years old. That's the reason I'm the host of your program. With me today is Ellen Boyer. Ellen is married to Bo Boyer, and they have three children, Brett, Wells, and Lottie. Brett was born with Down syndrome and a congenital heart defect. Sadly, Brett passed away due to complications from her congenital heart defect. Ellen is with me here today to talk about World Down Syndrome Day. This day has been officially observed by the United Nations since 2012. On March 21st, 2024, the call is for people around the world to end the stereotypes. Ellen and her family started the Brett Boyer Foundation in honor of her daughter. Ellen is the executive director of the Brett Boyer Foundation, and today we'll learn more about that foundation and how you can help them with their mission. After our interview today, Megan Tones and I will take turns reading essays from Chapter 5 of The Heart of a Heart Warrior. You can sign up to take part in a book study of Volume 2 on our website, babyheartspress.com. We'll be discussing the books Thursdays from 5 to 6 p.m., USA Central Daylight Savings Time. We'll discuss the book starting on Thursday, March 21st, which just happens to be World Down Syndrome Day. It's only $10 a session, and anyone is welcome to join at any time. Now on to the show. Welcome to Heart with Anna Ellen.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad to be with you.
Well, I'm so excited to have a chance to talk to you today and to learn more about your nonprofit organization. So, first of all, a mutual friend of ours, Katie Swan, told me I had to meet you and I had to have you on the podcast. And the more I learned about you, the more I realized, oh, yeah, she is absolutely right. So, I really enjoyed reading about the Brett Boyer Foundation on your website. For those who don't know about this foundation, can you tell us why you started it and what your foundation does or who it helps?
Absolutely. Thank you. And yes, I agree. Katie is just the best. I'm so thankful that she connected us. And I'm so thankful to know her. She's such a gift to the CHD community. We started the Brett Boyer Foundation in 2017. My precious firstborn, Brett, we got a prenatal diagnosis of Down syndrome, and she had a balanced AV canal defect. When I was pregnant with her, I always tell people I totally feared the wrong diagnosis. There were a lot of intricacies of her diagnosis of, yes, she might have Down syndrome. No, it looks like low risk. We did not have an amnio. But when we finally found out that she had an AV canal, that kind of solidified the diagnosis for us. And I thought, well, they're telling me that they can fix her heart because, they still love to use the term fixed. They can fix her heart, but what about Down syndrome? Because I was so fearful of all the things that they kept telling me she would never do. I was terrified of what it would do to our family, to the dynamic, because I wasn't lucky enough to know and love someone with Down syndrome. So I was so scared of what I didn't know. And then the minute she was born, I realized how wrong I was, that how I had feared the wrong diagnosis, and that Down syndrome was a part of her, and it was a part of her that I would not change for the world, that I'm so grateful that she chose us and that that was a part of her. It wasn't everything about her is a part of her that I just think is wonderful. It's always the top of our mission of the beauties that she taught us is that Down syndrome should be celebrated and does not need a cure, and that CHD needs a cure. And that's what took her from us.
Yeah. Isn't it funny how your world completely changed in what you were thinking and how you were thinking about it? And how interesting that the mission today with World Down Syndrome Day is to stop the stereotypes. And that's exactly what you were having to face yourself.
For sure. Of all the things that they told us that Brett may never do, none of that was considering her heart defect. Those predictions on what she would accomplish with her life were only based on her chromosomes. And I never in a million years, even before we talked about having children, do you think that your child would be able to change the world for an entire massive group of people? And she did. And she has and continues to. There's just so much that I'm so thankful that we never put her in a box the way that sometimes people that are just misinformed and uneducated about Down syndrome, and just so thankful that we get to see her legacy continue. It's just the honor of my life.
It's pretty amazing what people with Down syndrome can do. When my second child, who has a congenital heart defect, was born, we were living out in the country in Texas in a teeny tiny town called Mound. And everybody always says Flower Mound. Like, no, no, that's near Dallas. I was way out in central Texas in the middle of nowhere where there are more cows than there are people.
Wow.
And my neighbor down the street had Down syndrome.
Yeah?
And she wrote a column for Mound for the Gatesville newspaper because Mound is so tiny. We didn't have our own newspaper, but they always let us have part of the Gatesville newspaper once a week. And she would write the news. So we knew who was having lunch with whom or who went out to a movie or it was like walking back in time when I
Yeah.
lived out there. It was amazing. And this woman who was born with Down syndrome, she's in her 50s now. And she was just like the star of the town. She knew
Yes.
everything that was going on, and that was her job. She didn't get paid for it, but that was her mission was to keep everybody apprised of what's going on in the big metropolis of Mound, Texas.
I'm sure her beautiful life, her visibility, her contribution to the town made everybody's stigma about how much value she brings, I mean, to everybody that meets her and how much each life has such great purpose. Absolutely. The amount of chromosomes that we have don't change that. It amplifies.
No, they don't. Yeah, and how lovely that we're not all exactly alike, right? I love it that we have different interests, we have
Yeah.
different abilities, we have different things that excite us. I was a homeschool mom, and one of my dear friends who was a homeschool mom, we were co-coaches for our children's robotics club. And her aunt has Down syndrome. Her aunt didn't have the same skills that my neighbor did, but her aunt is just such a joy to be around. And when she's with her aunt, they dress up like princesses and they go to tea and they do fun things. I kind of feel like her aunt is a reminder of not ignoring the child in us and that it's okay to be childlike and see joy in everything because that's how her aunt is. She just
Yeah.
finds joy in everything. And isn't that lovely that we have someone
Yes.
like that in our lives?
I know, and that's what I wanna be like, and that's what I wanna be around, and, I mean, why would you not want to find joy in everything? It's just a beautiful reminder and something that our society needs so badly. I'm so grateful to know and be a part of this community, and I'm so thankful that Brett came to us exactly how she was.
So tell me, now that we've talked about that, what does World Down Syndrome Day mean to you?
World Down Syndrome Day means to me celebrating our differences, like we said before, celebrating what everybody brings to the table, acknowledging that they deserve a seat at the table, and recognizing that all of our strengths are different. And one of the biggest things that Brett taught me is no matter how old you are, maybe you haven't figured out what your strength is yet, and that you have
Yeah.
the ability to see it in other people and to help them recognize it as well.
Yeah. It feels like Brett gave you a whole new mission in life.
Absolutely. And absolutely to never put limitations on yourself, but also to know that you have absolutely no right to put limitations on other people.
Right.
I know you and I talked before we started recording about when we received her diagnosis, we had many doctors that absolutely saw her worth right off the bat. And I'm so grateful that they were so compassionate about honoring her life and recognizing she is our child and is no differently loved than our other two. But there were still a lot of people that immediately put limitations on her before she was even here. And it's so hard as a parent to hear that and not to feel fear immediately. Before she was born, there were a lot of things that I definitely didn't think that I could do, and she brought out good in me that I didn't even know that was in there. That is something that forever I will never put limitations of what someone is capable of.
I love it. For those who have not visited your website yet, can you give us the URL for your website?
Yes, the website is the brettboyerfoundation.org. That's Brett with 2 T's. Our logo is the queen bee because that's what we called her, our Brett, the queen bee. Yellow was just her color. And another thing that kind of made my heart so happy was years before I was even pregnant with her, I had saved in my phone. It said, aerodynamically, the bumblebee shouldn't be able to fly, but the bumblebee doesn't know that. So they just keep on flying anyway. And I was reminded that while I was pregnant and going through all of the emotions that are part of receiving a diagnosis that's scary, anything different is scary. And I read that and I was like, we're not going to tell her what she can and cannot do. We're just going to be along for the ride. And sometimes things take longer and they're that much more of a celebration. And I just want to be part of it. That is why it's all bees and uh, why you'll see the bumblebees flying around on our website.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for coming on the program today, Ellen. I have so enjoyed meeting you, hearing about the Brett Boyer Foundation, and I know we're going to be talking about it even more next week.
Thank you, Anna. I've enjoyed it too.
Okay, my friends, that concludes the interview portion of the podcast. We'll take a short break, but when we come back, you'll have a chance to hear my co editor, Megan Tones, and me read aloud from our new book, The Heart of a Heart Warrior, Volume 2, Endurance, Chapter 5.